Breaking news, Viking Nation. The first revelation is about to detonate inside US Bank Stadium, like a purple lightning bolt striking the frozen tundra of Minnesota. 5 absolutely mind-blowing developments are cascading through Minneapolis right now that could completely reshape everything you thought you knew about this championship caliber Vikings team. We're talking about a crucial injury update that could determine the entire trajectory of the season opener. A legendary homecoming that has every Vikings fan from Duluth to Rochester crying tears of pure joy. A trade aftermath that accidentally created chaos for another franchise while perfectly timing Minnesota's master plan. And a wide receiver market explosion that's giving the Vikings incredible options to build the most dangerous passing attack in the NFC North. Each of these earth-shaking stories could redefine the future of this purple and gold dynasty. And if you bleed Minnesota harder than you despise the Packers and Bears combined, you need to hear every single explosive detail. The first bombshell is about to rock the foundation of Week 1. And it all starts with the injury news that has Viking Nation holding its collective breath. The Minnesota Vikings just received the injury update that could determine whether their Monday Night Football season opener becomes a statement victory or a struggling debut. And the news about Jaylen Naylor is exactly what every single Vikings fan has been desperately praying to hear throughout these nerve-wracking weeks of uncertainty. ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler just dropped the bombshell that Vikings are optimistic about Naylor playing Week 1 against the Chicago Bears, barring any last-minute setbacks during this crucial final week of preparation. This isn't just a minor roster move that casual fans can ignore. This is potentially the difference between J.J. McCarthy having a legitimate deep threat to stretch the field or being forced to rely on unproven rookies in the biggest game of his young career. Naylor injured his hand during those intense joint practices against the New England Patriots back in August, and for weeks, Vikings fans have been sweating bullets, wondering if their most explosive vertical weapon would be available when the lights shine brightest on Monday Night Football. The 26-year-old speedster underwent a surgical procedure on his hand with the specific intention of being ready for the season opener, showing just how committed both he and the organization are to having him on the field when it matters most. Here's why Naylor being healthy is absolutely crucial for Minnesota's offensive game plan against the Bears defense that's going to be hungry to make a statement in their own right. With Jordan Addison suspended for the first 3 games due to his DUI case, the Vikings desperately need someone who can take the top off the defense and create those explosive plays that open up everything else for Justin Jefferson and the rest of this talented offensive unit. Jefferson is obviously the primary weapon and one of the most dominant receivers in the entire NFL. But his greatest strength lies in his nuanced route running and ability to create separation at all 3 levels, not necessarily being the pure vertical burner who makes safeties panic about getting beaten deep. Naylor fills that specific role perfectly, forcing opposing defensive coordinators to account for his speed and creating those underneath and intermediate opportunities that make Kevin O'Connell's offense so devastating when all the pieces are working together. The timing of this positive injury news couldn't be more perfect for Minnesota's championship aspirations, especially considering this is a contract year for Naylor and his entire future hinges on staying healthy and producing at the level everyone knows he's capable of reaching. Last season, he caught 28 passes for 414 yards and 6 touchdowns. Numbers that hint at the explosive potential waiting to be unleashed if he can stay on the field and develop the consistency that turns good receivers into great ones. Those 6 touchdowns in limited opportunities show exactly the kind of red zone and big play threat he brings to this offense. The type of weapon that can completely change the complexion of games with one perfectly timed deep ball from McCarthy. Having Naylor available against the Bears means O'Connell can deploy those devastating dagger concepts that have become a signature of his offensive philosophy, using the deep threat to clear out safety help and create massive windows for Jefferson to work his magic in the intermediate areas. Can you imagine what this Bears secondary would look like trying to cover both Jefferson running precise routes underneath and Naylor threatening to blow past him vertically on every single snap? Do you see how having that speed element completely changes the math for Chicago's defensive game plan and forces them to make impossible choices about where to commit their safety help? But trust me, the story only gets more emotional from here, because what comes next might be the most heartwarming. Homecoming in Minnesota sports history. The tears were flowing and the emotions were overflowing as Adam Thielen, the ultimate Minnesota success story, officially returned home to the purple and gold in the kind of storybook trade that reminds every Vikings fan why they fell in love with this franchise in the first place. The 35-year-old Detroit Lakes native, who went from undrafted tryout player to franchise legend, is back where he belongs after the Vikings executed a masterful trade with the Carolina Panthers that brings the veteran receiver home just in time to help mentor J.J. McCarthy through his crucial first NFL season. This isn't just any ordinary trade. This is the homecoming the Vikings fans have been dreaming about since the organization made the difficult decision to release Thielen after the 2022 season, a move that broke hearts across Minnesota but made financial sense at the time. The trade itself tells a story of how badly both sides wanted this reunion to happen, with Minnesota sending a 2026 5th-round pick and 2027 4th-round pick to Carolina in exchange for Thielen, a conditional 2026 7th-rounder, and a 2027 5th-round pick. But here's the part that will make every Vikings fan's heart swell with pride. Thielen took a $2 million pay cut to make this deal happen, proving that some things matter more than money when you're talking about a player who considers Minnesota his true home. The emotional impact of this move extends far beyond the financial details or draft pick compensation, reaching into the very soul of what makes Vikings football special and why certain players become forever connected to the communities they represent. Thielen's journey from Detroit Lakes High School standout to Minnesota State Mankato College star to undrafted free agent to Pro Bowl receiver to franchise icon is the kind of story that Hollywood scriptwriters would reject as being too perfect to believe. When he walked into that Vikings rookie minicamp in 2013 as a tryout player, participating in a program designed to use locally based talent to ensure they had enough bodies for 11-on-11 drills, nobody could have predicted he'd eventually become the third leading receiver in franchise history with 534 career catches, trailing only Hall of Famers Chris Carter and Randy Moss. The timing of this reunion is absolutely perfect for both Thielen and the Vikings organization, as Minnesota desperately needed veteran leadership and reliable hands with Addison suspended, Rondale Moore lost for the season with a knee injury, and Naylor dealing with his hand concerns. Thielen spent the past 2 summers working out with McCarthy during their Minnesota-based training sessions, building the kind of chemistry and familiarity that can be manufactured overnight, but instead develops through shared commitment and mutual respect. This existing relationship gives the Vikings a massive advantage because Thielen already knows how McCarthy reads defenses, understands his arm strength and accuracy, and can serve as a security blanket for a young quarterback making his first career start on the biggest stage possible. The numbers from Thielen's Carolina tenure prove he's still got plenty left in the tank, despite being 35 years old, catching 103 passes for over 1,000 yards in his first season with the Panthers, and following that up with 48 catches for 615 yards and 5 touchdowns despite missing 7 games due to injury last season. Those production levels, combined with his intimate knowledge of O'Connell's offensive system and his proven ability to perform in clutch moments, make him the perfect complement to Jefferson's explosive playmaking ability and Naylor's vertical speed. The emotional component of this story reached its peak when Thielen's wife Caitlin posted that Instagram video of their 4-year-old daughter Cora wearing a Minnesota Twins shirt chanting, "We're going home, we're going home." A moment that captured the pure joy and genuine excitement that this family feels about returning to the state that raised them and the organization that gave them everything. Are you feeling the chills running down your spine thinking about Thielen catching touchdown passes in front of the same Minnesota fans who watched him develop from unknown tryout player into beloved franchise icon? Can you picture the standing ovation he's going to receive when he's introduced at US Bank Stadium, knowing that every single person in that building understands the incredible journey that brought him back home? But hold on tight, because as heartwarming as that homecoming story is, the next revelation shows how perfect timing and a little bit of luck can completely change the trajectory of multiple franchises. The Minnesota Vikings didn't just execute a masterful trade for Adam Thielen, they accidentally pulled off one of the most perfectly timed deals in recent NFL history, creating an inadvertent disaster for the Carolina Panthers that proves sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. The trade timing became absolutely crucial when Jalen Naylor, the second-year Panthers receiver who was supposed to step into Thielen's role and become Bryce Young's primary target, suffered a quad injury in practice just one day after the trade was completed. Had that injury occurred 24 hours earlier, this entire deal might never have happened, leaving Minnesota scrambling for receiver help and Carolina keeping their veteran safety net for their struggling young quarterback. This is the kind of serendipitous timing that championship organizations need to capitalize on. And general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah deserves massive credit for pushing this trade through at exactly the right moment. The Panthers were comfortable trading Thielen because they had big plans for Coker, who showed flashes of stardom as a rookie in 2024 with 32 catches for 478 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carolina's front office felt confident that Coker could handle increased targets and become the reliable possession receiver that Bryce Young desperately needs to develop into a franchise quarterback. That grand plan went up in smoke when Coker went down with an injury that will keep him out for at least the first 4 games of the season, potentially longer, depending on how the quad responds to treatment. Now the Panthers are stuck with a receiving core that includes first-round picks Tetairoa McMillan and Xavier Legette, along with Hunter Renfrow, David Moore, Jimmy Horn Jr., Bryson Tremaine, and Dalvin Campbell, a group that looked decent on paper 2 weeks ago, but now features 3 to 4 players that casual NFL fans have never heard of. The irony is almost too perfect to believe. Minnesota got exactly what they needed at the exact moment they needed it, while Carolina lost both their veteran leader and their planned replacement in the span of 48 hours. This situation forced the Panthers to scramble and re-sign Hunter Renfrow, the 29-year-old receiver who missed all of 2024, dealing with ulcerative colitis that was so severe he suffered through 7 consecutive days of 103-degree fevers and wondered if he'd ever play football again. Renfrow had some productive seasons earlier in his career, including that impressive 2021 campaign with the Las Vegas Raiders when he caught over 1,000 yards, but he's been inconsistent and injury-prone in recent years. The financial implications of this timing couldn't be more stark for both organizations involved in this trade. Minnesota gets a proven veteran who knows their system, has chemistry with their quarterback, and can contribute immediately, all while Carolina pays $7 million to strengthen a division rival instead of keeping that veteran leadership for their own struggling offense. The Panthers essentially paid the Vikings to take a player who could help them win games this season, while simultaneously weakening their own offense right before the season starts. This trade aftermath reveals just how crucial timing can be in the NFL, where one day can mean the difference between a successful roster move and a complete disaster. The Vikings negotiated this deal for slightly less than a week, with both sides actively engaged in discussions before finally pulling the trigger last Wednesday. If those negotiations had dragged on even one more day, Coker's injury would have likely killed the deal entirely, leaving Minnesota without their much-needed veteran receiver and forcing them to rely entirely on rookies and injured players. From Carolina's perspective, this represents a brutal lesson in the importance of depth and the unpredictable nature of NFL injuries. They made what seemed like a logical decision to cash in on Thielen's value while opening up opportunities for their younger receivers, but now they're facing the season with a decimated receiving core and a second-year quarterback who desperately needs reliable targets. Do you see how one day of timing completely changed the trajectory of both franchises and potentially affected their entire 2025 seasons? Can you imagine how different this story would be if Coker had gotten hurt just 24 hours earlier, keeping Thielen in Carolina and leaving Minnesota without their much-needed veteran presence? This is the kind of front office maneuvering that separates championship organizations from rebuilding teams. And right now the Vikings look like the smartest team in the room, while the Panthers are left picking up the pieces of a plan that fell apart in the most unexpected way possible. The aftermath of Adam Thielen's trade and Jalen Coker's injury has created a domino effect throughout the NFL that's opening up incredible opportunities for teams like the Minnesota Vikings to strengthen their receiving core even further, and the free agent market is suddenly flooded with talented pass catchers who could provide additional depth and explosiveness to an already improving offensive unit. With over 1,100 players hitting waivers and free agency following the league-wide roster cuts, Minnesota finds themselves in the enviable position of being able to pick and choose from a talent pool that includes several intriguing options who could contribute immediately or develop into valuable role players throughout the season. The most interesting name on the market is Malachi Corley, the third-round pick from the 2024 draft, who was surprisingly released by the New York Jets after struggling to find his role in Aaron Rodgers' offense. Corley was targeted just 6 times during his entire rookie season, but his college numbers at Western Kentucky were absolutely spectacular, suggesting there's untapped potential waiting for the right system and the right opportunity to flourish. Minnesota's track record of developing receivers and maximizing their talents makes them an ideal landing spot for a player like Corley, who might thrive in Kevin O'Connell's creative offensive schemes that emphasize getting playmakers the ball in space. The Vikings have proven time and again that they can identify overlooked talent and turn them into productive contributors. From Adam Thielen's incredible journey from tryout player to Pro Bowler, to Jaylen Naylor's development from 6th-round pick to legitimate deep threat. Adding Corley to this receiving room would give them another young weapon with upside, providing insurance against injuries while adding competition that pushes everyone to elevate their games throughout the season. Other notable names hitting the market include veteran players who bring experience and reliability, exactly the kind of depth that championship teams need when injuries inevitably strike during the long grind of an NFL season. Mecole Hardman from the Kansas City Chiefs represents the type of speed and big game experience that could be valuable in specific packages, especially considering his familiarity with winning cultures and high-pressure situations from his time with back-to-back Super Bowl champions. The beauty of Minnesota's current situation is that they don't necessarily need to make panic moves or overpay for talent, since they've already addressed their most pressing needs through the Thielen trade and have optimism about Naylor's return. Instead, they can be selective and strategic, looking for players who fit their culture and complement their existing talent rather than trying to find immediate starters. This approach allows them to focus on finding players with specific skill sets that match what O'Connell wants to accomplish offensively, whether that's another vertical threat, a reliable possession receiver, or a versatile player who can line up in multiple positions. The timing couldn't be better for Minnesota to explore these options, as they have sufficient salary cap space to make competitive offers while also having the luxury of being patient and waiting for the right opportunities to present themselves. Teams that are forced to make desperate moves often end up overpaying for mediocre talent, but the Vikings can afford to be choosy because they've already secured their primary needs through intelligent roster management and strategic trades. The depth chart currently features Justin Jefferson as the undisputed #1 option, with Thielen and Naylor providing veteran leadership and explosive potential respectively, followed by rookies Ty Felton and Miles Price, who showed enough during preseason to earn roster spots but still need development time. Adding 1 or 2 more experienced players to this mix would create the kind of depth that allows Minnesota to weather injuries, rotate players to keep them fresh, and deploy different personnel packages depending on game situations and opponent weaknesses. Can you see how having multiple receiving options gives JJ McCarthy the best possible chance to succeed in his first season, with veteran leadership from Thielen, deep speed from Naylor, and developing talent from the rookie class? Do you think Minnesota should be aggressive in pursuing additional receivers from the waiver wire, or should they trust in their current group and focus their resources on other position groups? The next few days will be crucial as teams evaluate their options and make decisions about which players to claim off waivers. And the Vikings are in a perfect position to add talent without disrupting their existing chemistry or breaking their salary cap structure. This receiver market explosion represents the kind of opportunity that smart organizations use to build championship caliber depth and Minnesota has already shown they're willing to be creative and proactive in addressing their roster needs. The perfect storm of injury updates, emotional homecomings, strategic timing, and market opportunities we've just witnessed tells the story of a Minnesota Vikings organization that's not just preparing for another season. They are methodically building the kind of championship infrastructure that separates contenders from pretenders in the brutal landscape of the modern NFL. Jaylen Naylor's optimistic injury prognosis gives JJ McCarthy a legitimate deep threat who can stretch the field and create explosive plays against the Bears defense that won't know whether to fear the vertical speed or Justin Jefferson's route running mastery. Adam Thielen's heartwarming homecoming provides veteran leadership, reliable hands, and the kind of emotional boost that can galvanize an entire locker room around a common goal of bringing a championship back to Minnesota. The perfectly timed trade aftermath shows how smart front office work and a little bit of luck can create massive advantages over division rivals while simultaneously strengthening your own roster. And the explosion of talent on the waiver wire gives Minnesota multiple options to add depth and competition without breaking their salary cap or disrupting their carefully constructed team chemistry. If you can feel the electricity building around this Vikings team, if you sense that something truly special is brewing in the Twin Cities with all these pieces falling perfectly into place, you need to smash that like button harder than a Jordan Mason power run between the tackles. Drop a comment telling us which of these 4 stories has you most excited about Minnesota's championship potential, and subscribe to this channel, because if you're not following every single development with this Vikings team, you're missing the construction of something that could be absolutely legendary. Share this video with every Vikings fan you know who needs to understand just how perfectly everything is aligning for what could be the most successful season in franchise history. And think this was wild? Just wait until the next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's recent memory. Because if you thought these 4 revelations were shocking, the real avalanche of championship building moves is just starting to gain momentum across the frozen tundra of Minnesota.